The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work there, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
Into the silo.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for joining us. A lot of good things going on this week.
I don't know. It looks like it's yours.
Well, that's fine. That's fine.
That's a big one.
No. Let's jump. Let's get right off the intro and talk about what Clint's watching. That's what everyone came to listen to. What's Clint walking around with?
He asked me a question. He was just walking in holding what is that? Diet
Hang on
Pepsi?
a second.
Is that a Diet Pepsi?
Hang on a second. I have new computers at my desk.
Yeah, you have something.
Frickin' technology.
You have something. I wouldn't even say you have new computers.
Is this yours? Because I'm
No,
about to drink it.
sweetheart.
That's what I say.
It's
I was
not
just
mine.
answering
Thank
his
you.
question.
I just want to make sure before I
that's-
crack this rum
I don't
and
know.
coke.
I like Pepsi.
Live
That
from
might
the
be mine.
SHR
Is it yours?
Studios. And hey, you know what the hell with
Hit
that?
it.
Let's just do
Hit
this.
it.
No, I like this better.
Hey, welcome to the SHR Media Network.
Done.
I'm your host, Sackhead Clinton. Sean won't do his job and intro us tonight, folks. Guys, I apologize.
Network.
I'm going to have to apologize for my partner being off his game and not giving us the proper intro tonight.
Me too. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
apologize.
BC, are you
I
in the zone
apologize.
tonight?
Are you apologetic?
I'm apologetic.
I am too.
On
This is
behalf
what I
of
like
my
when he's
partner.
not listening.
I'm sorry.
Wait, what?
When he's not listening to his headphones, I can play whatever sound effect I want, and it just makes him sound like a jackass.
Listen, now hang on a second. You unplugged my headphones
No, I didn't.
and my microphone this week.
Oh, get out of it.
Hang on, what am I supposed to do? Put them on?
Andy
Yeah,
stole
on
my
the- oh, yeah, they're
Pepsi.
working.
It
You
turns
see how
out
that
that's
works?
my.
You see how that
That's
works?
my Pepsi.
And
It turns
right.
out.
So, on top of his deviancy when it comes to just interrupting our
What,
intro,
hey, whoa. What do you mean deviancy?
I'm explaining
Oh,
it.
yeah, Trump's president, so
Dude,
now you no
stop,
longer have
stop.
to be like a
Dude, you've almost hit me with your nose 4 times. Slow down, all right? Jesus,
that
you're gonna
roll.
put an eye out with that thing.
That's not my nose.
No, sadly it is. Because it has... forget it. Hey,
No, I had an extra hole drilled, trust me. It used to be this piercing of Prince. It doesn't matter.
oh, man.
You don't want to know where my
If you
piercing
haven't
is.
figured it out yet, this is the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network, live from Studio 1, the big studio here at Sackheads headquarters. In sunny.
The one with the 6 45-inch monitors.
That's right.
It's the good studio.
In Calexico, California.
In Calexico, the future nation of California.
Right. Yeah.
This stat just in, I read this, so it must be true. 1 out of 3
Yes.
Californians
Yes.
wants to secede.
I think it's great.
Go.
Right. I don't know what I don't know what they're going to secede with, but have fun.
Yeah.
You know what?
Stop all the every last federal dollar. Stop.
No, here was my plan on that. San Francisco, and what's the other island off the southern part of LA?
L.A.
Yeah, what's that little island right off?
Coronado?
Yeah,
Coronado.
San Diego-
No,
San
Coronado's a
Diego?
peninsula. You mean Catalina.
Catalina. that was it.
Catalina.
They get each island. That's where the liberals can go to, and we'll take the rest. That's fair. They want to live kumbaya, right?
No, I say you let California secede, let the state of Jefferson stay. That way the flag stays the same.
Right.
Right?
No, I'm not saying no, but you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. To everybody that wants to secede, you go to San Francisco and Catalina. We'll give you those as one state.
I disagree. I think it should
Or-
be San
or your
Francisco
own nation.
and I think San Francisco and Alcatraz. That's an island.
Yeah, but you know what? I like the history in Alcatraz.
Okay, then Angel Island.
Angel
There's nothing
Island. Nah, but you know that's where the immigrants came through on the West Coast.
there. So?
Yeah, no, I kind of no. There's history there. San Francisco,
Okay, there's history there too.
Yeah, but you know what? There's enough D-bags there now that
It doesn't matter.
Right. I was just there the other day. It
I
wipes
don't
it
even
out.
go to that city. Okay.
Yeah, so
Did
it
you
wipes
go?
it out.
You did go to San Francisco.
Yeah, I had an appointment down there.
What did you go downtown?
Yeah.
I purposely have not been to San Francisco in a long time.
Still smells like urine.
Exactly.
It's amazing to me, and it's funny because I was right near where they're building the new Kings, or not Kings, the Warriors Arena, and I was getting a smell of sewage as I was walking down the street, and I said to somebody, I'm like, they must have opened up a sewage pipe. And the guy looked at me like I had 5 heads. He's like, no, it's every day. And I was like, oh, that's right. I remember reading a story that they have to pour excessive amounts of bleach into the sewerage system because so many people urinate into the sewerage system that it's actually overwhelming the odor that comes up out of the grates.
Well,
Yeah,
and
because they're transient population also.
Right.
I mean, it's just
they just piss and shit anywhere.
human waste all over the place.
But that's okay. We need to be understanding of that. Right. I'm sure all the businesses love it.
Well, they love it
well, they
so
do
much
because
that
they stay.
they love it so much that they've been adding that paint. Have you heard about this? The special paint they have now? Oh, we talked about this a couple months ago. Came out of Germany where they're having problems in really bar-rich environments of people urinating all over the place. It's this special paint that any fluid that hits it comes back off it almost like an immediate ricochet. So what happens is you have all these...
So the building pisses back on them.
Exactly.
That's wonderful.
Exactly.
I love
it.
that.
And so...
Let's do that on the studio. Look, the fucking libtards always want to find out where we are. That's why we have to change location every 6 months to a year.
At least.
At least.
Yeah, we're in the conservative protection program. So we... so no,
Which is now going to be federally funded, I understand.
it should be federally funded. I agree wholeheartedly. No, I don't want federal funding for that.
I don't want federal funding for anything.
I was kidding. Thank you to everyone who's filing into the chat room at shrmedia.com. Click listen or live now or broadcast now. I can't remember what it says. I've had too much going on today.
Ooh. I have a box that says show settings. Should I start clicking it?
Yes.
Okay.
You have a mouse over there, too, by the way. I've upgraded your technology. You've done so...
I don't know how to work any of it.
You've done so well
He's not kidding
with
when
the
he says
Atari
that.
button I gave you 4 years ago.
Yes.
That I've actually upgraded you to your own laptop and go from there. So, yeah, so San Francisco is just horrendous.
When was the last time you went down to the sort of the touristy area, Pier 39?
I was down there.
Ghirardelli.
I stopped there for lunch.
Okay, what's that like?
Well, and it's funny. When there's a lot of working people out and about, the transient and scumbag population, I will distinguish the two separately, don't show up. And I think anyone who lives in a big city knows. You get the 1 or 2 homeless guy maybe begging that doesn't necessarily... He knows the rules, right? He knows if he pushes it, he's going to get cornered and hemmed up by somebody.
Right.
Not necessarily even law enforcement, but somebody's going to tell him to go pound sand, and they don't want that.
Right.
So you had a couple. Didn't bother anyone from what I saw. And this is the tragedy with San Francisco, in my humble opinion. It's a cool city.
It's a beautiful city turned
It's
into a
beautiful to
sewer.
look at. Yes. The Ferry Building, went there to have lunch. There was a lot of great restaurants. There was this awesome farmers market out front. It's bustling. That whole, since they took the highway down over the Embarcadero, they did a really good job looking at it. It looks great. But you also know it's San Francisco. Once you started driving away from the touristy areas at all, I was down near UCSF Medical Center. And
Oh, right. Okay. Know where that is.
Oh, right in the good part of town.
oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
lovely.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
no,
used
it's the
to be
new one.
right
It's
next-
the new one right on the water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Because
no-
I was thinking of the one that used to be by Kezar Stadium.
No.
Is that the one where the water's on one side?
Yes.
Right? So you have only crap on 3 sides.
Right. Well,
Got
no,
it.
they have one city block of crap, then water.
Got it.
But in that area, there was, on this side of the street where the medical center was, no transients. Across the street, it was like going by, and I hate to use the term, like a pet store window, where there was like 50 of them, just like almost meerkatting. Like, what? You have money?
That's a great
Money?
visual.
Money?
I got that.
Money? Do you have money? But they didn't cross the street, and I'm sure it's because UC police are all over them. Because UCSF,
Which is surprising to me.
it's not to me. And I've lived in Boston, and I've seen San Francisco enough, and other big liberal cities. They do the same thing. Hey, we love everybody, and we want you to come here and take care of you. Blah 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 blah. Don't come near my property. And if you do, I'm going to have the police drag you away kicking and screaming while I sit and yell, please help that poor man, because if that trash bag comes near my house again, I'm going to run him over. It's the ultimate liberal hypocrisy.
Right. And look, we've seen that here in Sacramento with the arena.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Oh, we love we have to give them money, give them their spaces, not within several blocks of the arena.
Right.
We're
Right.
going to hammer down all of the anti-transient laws right around the arena, but you can go 4 blocks away and go
Whatever you want.
do whatever you want.
You can set up a house if you want. on the
Narrow
sidewalk.
needles.
As much heroin as you can do.
Yeah.
We'll give you fresh needles for it.
Absolutely, because you need a place to stay.
Well-
just not here.
And this brings me a little bit.
That's like the first time I went to D.C. The very first time I went to D.C., I found out what a schizo city it is. You go to the Supreme Court building, and a block from there is some of the worst tragic.
Yeah.
It's
Demilitarized zone.
It is a DMZ, and it's like there's this screen that comes down, and once you get a foot past that screen, it's abject poverty.
Well, and you also.
But they don't screw around on the other side.
No, they don't, because
they know what's gonna
There were
happen.
all the various memorial police. There's a police agency for basically
Every building there, yeah.
every large memorial.
Well, you have the memorials. You also have the museum.
So wait a second.
Yes.
I thought that was like,
Smithsonian has its own law enforcement.
I thought those were state. Those are not state. I thought those were federal parks.
They are,
Police.
but they
Yes.
have individual.
But they're all individual little agencies.
So it's like the World War II Memorial Police Department.
essentially. You
Really?
have the Capitol Police. You have the
That I knew.
U.S. Parks Police.
you have the park police.
It's so insane how many law enforcement agencies.
Then you got DC Metro running around.
right. Those. poor
That's literally
bastards.
all they do.
No.
No, like from call to call
Oh
to
yeah, I
call
was
to
gonna
call.
say. I was
Yeah.
gonna say they're running, but
Yeah, no, I was talking about. I
crazy.
wasn't being an a-hole. for
Yeah,
once.
it's
It's gotten to
crazy.
the point where even the little snowflakes in San Francisco, even they are starting to leave.
Yeah. Well, and here's what's funny. San Francisco's population has dipped greatly over the last 2 years because the taxation's through the roof. The business has gone down because of the mandatory minimum wage that they passed 2 years ago in the city itself. If you work in the city, you will receive, I think it was $14 before they passed the $15 minimum wage. And all this...
And all the environmental conditions.
Ralph the Madman Chittims in the chat room says there's over 30 agencies in the Washington, D.C. area.
I believe you
I believe it.
completely.
The Metro Division, the Metro train system has its own. There's a ton of them.
Ralph has a great point. I used to belong to this particular agency when I would sponsor a cop from other countries. And a dude from Germany came over one time. And I gave him a ride-along. And we're in the sheriff's department car. And a black and white goes by, and he says, "Who's that?" I said, "It's CHP." Then another black and white goes by, and he said, "Who's that?" I said, "That's SAC PD." Then another car goes by, and he said, "Who's that?" I said, "That's Federal Protective Police." Then another car goes by, and he says,
Park
"Who's
Ranger.
that?" And yeah, one of them was a park ranger. And then another one went by, and he said, "Who's that?" I said, "That's
Regional transit.
yeah, that's like regional transit police." He says, "How do you keep all that straight?" And the answer at the time was, "We don't."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and
He's like, we just have one. A couple lightning bolts.
Yes, he worked
like
Gray uniforms.
gray uniforms.
We're pretty stringent.
We have an armband. Pretty strict.
Yeah. Well, and it's amazing as you go all over the country. How many you go to New York City, the amount of police departments just within New York City that are run by the city is insane. You have the trash police. You have the
The what?
transit
We
housing.
call that the EPA here in California.
Yeah.
Seriously, but the city has its own, so it's absolutely crazy. But and the city could do that. When we start getting to the federal level, and we've talked about this with the EPA, the Department of Fisheries, there was a couple other ones that were enforcing all these laws. A couple years ago, we talked about this. Remember that we were talking about like some sort of fishing violation that they were doing.
The
Yes, we were about the NOAA.
The
Yes,
NOAA
NOAA.
has
They
a
were-
SWAT team, for
Right.
Christ's sake.
Because they were
Are
buying,
you kidding me?
And that's what I said is, why do you need all these different law enforcement agencies?
We did a whole segment on that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that there are certain things that shouldn't be enforced. I'm not saying that at all. But the duality and the duopolis, the amount of money you're spending for all these friggin' agencies.
Look, we're the Department of Redundancy Department.
Right,
Police, police,
You're
sheriffs.
doing a horrible
Wait,
job.
what?
You're doing a terrible job.
You know that
Yeah,
actually
that's
brings
Trooper
me,
Officer Smith. He's in charge.
that brings me to This is Sergeant
Sergeant
Cadet.
Sergeant Lieutenant Frank.
That brings me to a point. Obama,
Chief
Trump
Commissioner.
Trump said something interesting where he talked about Chicago not being able.
Trump said one thing interesting.
Just
One thing, well, he said a lot of interesting things. I don't want to get too far into the segment because I know we have to get into the inaugural Broads of America segment
Yes.
here in a moment.
Right, the
I
IDA.
almost went down this rabbit hole about the tweet.
Okay, but when he talked about if Chicago can't handle it, maybe the federal government will, and that kind of turned into I was talking about federal resources in terms of funding and everything else. That caused me concern.
Well, and I had the exact same reaction because I had a Facebook conversation, a pleasant one, because I was talking to a conservative, with somebody who lives in Chicago who says, hey, as a resident, I'd welcome it at this point because I don't feel safe. And I understand as a citizen not feeling safe and wanting a change.
But that is not a federal issue.
But it's still
Exactly.
wrong.
Let the
And
states
that's-
come in.
and that's
It's
what I
wrong.
said.
Look,
Yes.
I remember a time when, and you guys are familiar with this state, East Palo Alto, California.
Oh, yes, number
had
one
the
for homicides.
highest murder rate per capita in the U.S.
Yep.
And every agency, the police department in East Palo Alto, could not handle the call volume or anything else.
No, it was off the hook.
And every agency put in, I forget how many cars or cops it was in there, and handled the calls for the city. That's what should be happening in Chicago. Let the state come in, somebody
Right.
but the federal government.
No.
And here's the scary part. You look at in policing the cost of body cams, and for an agency the size of like the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, 15,000 deputies or 14,000 deputies, whatever it is.
No, actually, LASO is about.
I thought it was 14 or 15,000.
No, they're about 9 now, and LAPD is about 7,500. They've been gutted.
Have
That's
they been gutted?
horrendous.
Okay. Even so, their numbers, they need another 2,400 people just to make their body program or body camera program work.
Yep.
That is going to bankrupt
The entire
a
county.
lot of smaller agencies.
Well, can you imagine the mandate for something
and-
like that, and all the smaller
Well,
agencies?
so here's
How do you afford that?
my point.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's stay on point.
Here's my point. The Obama administration was very much a fan of the whole national police force,
Absolutely.
right? National
Federalize
standards, everything
everything.
else, federalize everything. The body cam push was done under that administrative
Yes.
watch. Knowing the cost associated with that,
Ridiculous.
do you think there was part of some kind of, because we've talked about Nudge, we've talked about Casas, we've talked about all these people before, to get more federal involvement at the local level in terms
Yes,
of law
I
enforcement?
agree wholeheartedly.
I think
Why
there
do you
is.
think
Most-
the Department of Justice was showing
Exactly.
up uninvited
And
all
so,
over the place?
So now that we have the Trump administration kind of making these comments about Chicago has caused me pause.
well, and so
And I understand from a conservative standpoint now his press secretary is spinning it to funding and
so that's what I said before the comments were made by the press sec. I said, hey, listen, in my conversation this morning,
Mm-hmm.
I understand why you as a citizen will take any help you can get, right? You're in a city that doesn't let you carry guns,
Yep.
and you're surrounded by people that are carrying guns, and the cops are handcuffed, especially now because the DOJ just slammed them 3 months ago with a bullshit report.
There are 25 cities right now operating under a federal consent decree.
Exactly.
which is
So-
bullshit. That is
but-
not the Fed's job.
But I said you need to look at the problem. Two things. The citizenry in that city needs to demand that the officers be allowed to work, and you need to get the politicians to untie the DA's office,
Mm-hmm.
and the state needs to untie the prisons and actually put people in jail, and then you will see things start to change.
Now,
but federalizing law enforcement is a horrendous precedence to set.
Absolutely.
So I said I want clarity on what that comment means. If it means we're going to give investigate the city. Are they doing things to keep their citizens unsafe? Okay. If they're going to go a RICO angle on some of the gang members, okay, we have precedents for that. I don't necessarily agree, but I understand. They're still within the bounds, whether I like it or not.
Right.
If they're going to provide additional funding and resources to help the city deal with that, great. If there is a support role, great. Not actively on the street. No posse comitatus. I don't want the military on the street.
Nope.
None of that stuff can happen.
But it's a state issue. It is a state
absolutely
issue.
a state issue.
It is.
Now,
And
look,
here's why. Illinois, 1 year for possession of a firearm.
Yes.
New York, 3.
Yes.
They all know that.
Yes.
They're not stupid.
and here's the other part of that equation is this. Now, should the state, and if the federal government wants to provide some kind of guidance in an advisory capacity to
Yep.
the state, look, there are some agencies that there is fundamental corruption. There is problems within the agency that needs to be exposed that you cannot allow to fester. You look at the report on Ferguson. The Ferguson officer did nothing wrong. But were there issues within that department that, and
But
yes,
here's the
hang on
problem.
a second. Yes, there were, but I still think it's a state issue
It is
to
a
have
state.
some kind of oversight to identify those needs
I
within those
agree.
agencies and communities.
I agree. And here, I even use the point that once you turn it to the DOJ, what if they're wrong? Who do you go to then, right? Once
Exactly.
you've allowed all this force.
And who are they to set the standard?
Well,
What
exactly.
works in one community doesn't work in another,
Right.
and that's why even at the state level they understand the dynamics within that
goes
state.
back to idea of Department of Education.
Yes.
Why does that exist?
Yes.
The other thing about Ferguson, too, is they were sent in to investigate that one incident.
Yep.
They found nothing and said, hey, we're going to stay and poke around for a little while.
Yes.
And even the things that they did find weren't even a state issue. They were an interdepartmental issue that could have very easily been resolved on a local level.
Yes, absolutely. But if the department wouldn't identify it itself, the state could have come in to assist with
The
that.
city council at that point could have done it. It wasn't that rampant.
Right.
What was going on in Ferguson was really just some name calling and crude jokes.
No,
At the end of the day.
I was talking about the area of Ferguson where they really wouldn't even patrol. It would be calls only.
Right.
That would be an area where a state could come in and say, "Hey, these citizens
Your city
still
council
need
could do that.
police service."
You order the chief to the mat. Hey, why aren't they receiving services? It's a city issue. It's not even a state issue.
It
No,
is,
it's
but
not.
But if a city won't address it,
Then you go to the
That's
county.
bingo. That's
a
it
city
right there.
won't address
What's
it-
happening is
Yes.
that all these agencies are not even acknowledging
Exactly.
that it's a larger issue with regards to the prosecution, the state laws, and their DAs.
Well, and that's why I said if Trump wants to investigate the city leadership and the department leadership for somehow keeping the officers from doing their job or strangling the officers from doing their job, which we've heard about that before, where departments
Absolutely.
are getting pressured not to do certain things in certain neighborhoods because it looks bad.
Absolutely.
Or the citizens feel icky because they're out there arresting bad guys. If that's a directive, then that's a direct violation of oath, in my opinion, and there is something that should be done about
and
it.
that's a local issue.
It's a local
That's
issue.
a
But it's a
department
state issue.
issue.
Yep.
That is not a
But if-
federal
if it's
issue.
the
none of it's a
leadership-
federal issue.
Exactly.
But if it's a leadership and if it's a city, maybe it's the mayor, say Rahm Emanuel, then it's a state issue. And if the state can't get a handle on it because they're so effing corrupt, which, when was the last time we saw a governor in Chicago or in Illinois go to jail for corruption? Like 3 years ago. But that's not important right now. Then you can get into it on a federal level because that entire leadership is failing the state, and the citizenry in that state deserves to be protected on some level. But that becomes a direct issue of the administration misusing federal funds,
Right.
etc.,
And the
versus
only-
policing.
And the only time a policing really should be an issue is if you have law enforcement officers that are going out knowingly violating the U.S. Constitution, then that's a federal
Certainly.
issue.
And that's an individual issue
Absolutely.
that you can address on that level.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry we got so far ahead, but
No,
I want to
you're
get back
not.
on
You
point.
love it.
No, I literally am.
Love it.
BZ, you're up. Inaugural Broads of America.
Ah, yes, the IBA. Not to be confused with a good beer like an IPA.
Right. Or a
Major
condition like
difference.
IBS.
Or, me after nachos. Go ahead.
Right.
Exactly. There was a Secret Service female. Hope you're sitting down for this one.
And you want the
A
feds local.
Denver-based Secret Service agent's assertion that she would rather go to jail than take a bullet for President Trump
Uh-huh.
left all sorts of other Secret Service agents, the people that work around her, the people in the agency itself and law enforcement just absolutely gobsmacked. What the hell?
Yes.
It's just, where do you get these people? It is Trump derangement syndrome, but now it's down into a law enforcement level.
Well, you know what this is, and I say this all the time. I think here is a woman who is trying to make headlines so she can retire and be that one. She'll make a ton of money on the circuit. Look, I stood up against the man. I was there. I was supposed to protect him, but I couldn't bring myself to do it, and I threw my whole career away because he's such a horrible person. Pay me to talk to people.
Well, here's the deal. You're a Muslim, you're ringing up groceries, for example, and all of a sudden you decide, I'm not going to ring up alcohol or ham. You knew what the job was when you took it.
Agreed.
To the U.S. Secret Service. You walk in, you get somebody you don't like. You knew what the job was before you walked in.
Agreed.
So what happened is about 7 months ago, she decided that she's going to make some Facebook posts slamming President Trump. And it's still in the campaign at that time. He hasn't even been elected. And in one of those posts, she specifically wrote on Facebook that she wouldn't want to, quote, take a bullet for him. She explained it by saying that she viewed his presidential candidacy as the word she used was a disaster for the country, and particularly for women and minorities.
Yeah, so many have been just rounded up at random since the inauguration. It's really kind of disgusting.
Let's name him and shame him. Her name is Kerry O'Grady.
Ogre. The word ogre is right in her name, isn't it? Sorry. That may have been off.
No, that's an astute observation. Look, how is that inaccurate reporting? That is one of the more
ogre.
That is one of the more accurate news stories in this week, actually.
Okay, here's a comparison, however. Why should she be any different after writing that on Facebook, on social media, when there have been law enforcement officers, particularly this past week, who were fired and suspended because they said they supported Darren Wilson, who was never... He was charged, but he was never indicted and found not guilty.
Amazing what happens, right? To support somebody else in your field who...
So why is she different? Why should she be completely...
You've already said it. She.
Thank you very much.
And I believe that. And you also go back to how many officers were hung for doing pro-Trump things, right? Remember the San Antonio Police Department motor team getting in trouble because they wore Make America Great Again hats.
Yes.
And they hit them with a uniform policy violation.
Yep.
On the day that they were protecting the then candidate Trump, and he shook all of their hands. They all got some sort of discipline for that. So where's the precedent?
I bet they all have that letter of whatever framed and hanging up near their whatever.
Most likely.
Just to show what a... Yeah.
But you have a media who is letting her off the hook. Whereas they lambasted these other officers for supporting Trump. You now have CNN and these other asshole media, as I like to start to call them now, who are defending her and how she's so brave for coming out and blah, blah, blah. No,
wrong. She's not doing a damn job.
Right. At all.
So, at 11:07 p.m., it's immured, because it's there, it's social media, on a Sunday in October. She says she endorsed Hillary Clinton and said that she would, in this post, endure jail time rather than taking a bullet for what she regarded as a disaster for America. So she can write that in the federal venue, and all the various law enforcement officers around the nation, they get skewered for saying anything. Many of the things that they said or thought or writed about or just clicked, these cops got suspended when they clicked like
on a Facebook
on
post.
Another post, and they didn't write it, they just clicked like.
Well, and you also remember when the Secret Service book about Inside the Clintons came out and how they were trying to go after that author for potentially allowing classified and top
That was
secret.
Ronald Kessler. I read the book.
Yeah.
I have it.
And there were people actively lobbying for him to have some sort of charges brought against him for discussing things that were classified, even though they weren't, but they were reaching because he went after the liberal royalty of the Clintons. So the standard has been set in the sense that there is no standard. It's emotion rules, and that's what it comes down to. We're up against a break. When we come back, it's the U.S. You know what? I don't want to tease it. I don't want anyone to think about it. It's a really good subject that's going to make Clint go crazy, and we're going to have fun with it right here on the Sackheads Radio Show live.
I
on
want to
SHR
see
Media
Clint
Network.
go crazy.
If you're not in the chat room, maybe if you're a first-time listener, go to live chat, www.shrmedia.com, and say hello to our good friends in there. Be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Cap was stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to Ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
You're listening to the smooth voices of the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for joining us.
That's a good intro. I like that one.
It's so nice. It's so nice. If Clint ever put on his headphones for that, he'd actually.
No,
enjoy it.
I'm sitting 3 feet from you.
No, it's more like 15.
No, it's 3.
It's like, well, with his nose where it ends, yeah, it's
That's
only
why I
like
say it
3.
is
Look,
15
we're kind of
feet.
15 for the body.
Hang
12,
on a second.
3 for the nose.
We're kind of like a yin and yang. My nose overlaps, your belly underlaps. Together we fit.
Yeah, but you
we're
don't
like
have-
a perfect puzzle.
You don't have to duck my belly, homie.
Hey, let me just rest this on your forehead for a second.
Feel a little Roman right now. Hey, look, there's your subject. Right there. 2030, you're up, buddy.
What? It's almost like somebody programmed this. Like,
Yeah,
I know,
it's-
poor BZ, he got 5 minutes.
Well, that's all right. I'm still here in the room.
First of all, he had his whole show last night, every Tuesday at 8 o'clock on the SHR Media Network Pacific Time.
Thank you for the program.
Yeah, why the hell are you here now
Right.
still?
Okay, I see what that means.
You already got what you
the
wanted.
underlying
You
subtext
have
of
your own show.
that
You have your own
is,
show.
there's
No.
the door, sir.
No, you're looking at it the wrong way. Normally, people just get their show from us, and then we never hear from them again. So we just figured you were going to stop coming.
Did you really?
No.
I didn't think so.
No, of course not.
Of course not.
So, did you know that? Have you guys ever heard of the 2016 Democracy Index?
No.
It's put out by the Economist Intelligence Unit, which is in the United Kingdom, and we used to be listed as a pure democracy. We have been downgraded. We are no longer listed as a pure
Oh,
democracy.
good. Are we a constitutional republic?
No,
Oh.
we are a flawed
God damn it.
democracy.
A what?
What?
A flawed democracy. So, I have a frickin' question for these fucking douchebags. First of all, who the hell are they to rate us? We kicked your ass in 2 wars. There's a reason
And then
we don't
s-
answer
and
to
then
you
saved it
anymore.
in 2 others.
And then saved it in 2 others. There's a reason we don't answer to you anymore.
Well,
We're not a frickin' democracy.
just like Sean said, we're not a
We're
democracy.
not. We've never been a democracy.
Flawed
Nor
or
do we want,
otherwise.
as evidenced by our recent election.
Right.
Right.
These
It was
guys
an
are gibbering
electoral
morons.
We are not
video.
mob rule in this country.
No.
We are not mob rule.
It was an electoral victory. It was not a popular vote.
I agree.
Oh my! So this is my rant. I saw this.
The
and at
temerity to downgrade us.
first- yes.
You arseholes.
Yes. Well, to even put us at the top of the list, anyways. Is this some kind of backhanded slight?
Yes. That's
to Americans.
That's exactly what it was. Hey, listen.
You're
picked-
no longer a pure democracy.
You
You're
picked
more
somebody
of a,
that you thought was good for you, but we think he's icky, so we're just going to slam
we're
you.
gonna.
the best
Yeah,
we
you're no
can.
longer you're a flawed.
But this is what
demo-
the left does, too.
Good.
Right?
Hang on a sec. Good. I don't want to be a frickin' democracy. I want to be a flawed democracy. I want to be a constitutional republic because that's what we are. Representative government. Hey, Great Britain. Remember Yorktown?
Well, here's the thing. A constitutional republic, and this is what leftists don't get and don't like and hate, is it limits the power of government. The Constitution says not what the government can do, but it mostly says what the government can't do to its people.
Well, this group did stress that the lower ranking was not due to the new administration,
Oh.
but rather public confidence in government. Hey, jackasses!
Yeah, look
Public
at-
confidence.
Look
in-
at yourselves first.
Yeah, no, the lack of public confidence in government is what got us our own country. Do you fools forget that fact? We had no confidence in your government.
We were the
So
original nonconformists.
You're right. So we kicked your ass and formed our own. Now
right.
you're pissed at us for it because looks like we're doing it again and we got Trump.
How stupid was it for you guys to line up in red coats in a line and make it really easy for us to shoot you?
Well,
Yeah,
you know what? How stupid was it when you gave up all your guns and then needed them all of a sudden?
right. And then gave them up again.
And then needed them all of it. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
They kind
Yeah.
of need them now anyhow.
They all-
do actually need them.
A great
now.
deal of the EU wants their own version of the second.
Yes. It's weird, huh?
Yeah.
Imagine that. What a shock. Didn't see that one coming.
I think we actually called that like every
Every couple weeks.
couple weeks and yeah.
So here's something that, you know.
I'm sorry. I get so that angered me.
No.
Well, number one, the temerity of them to even say that when their own interior government is not functioning and the people basically just voted no confidence on them.
Right. Right.
And now Article 50, even though the people voted on it, on Brexit, Article 50, now the Parliament has weighed in over there and said, oh, we're going to vote on it. If they don't let it go, you think we're having problems over here?
Oh.
Wait till you see what happens in the UK.
They will be going insane over there, especially because the people spoke. You know, here's the amazing part about Brexit. Brexit wasn't just a referendum on the EU. Brexit was a referendum on the British leadership. Hey, you're forcing us down this road we don't want to go on. We told you from the beginning this was horrible. You signed onto this BS thing anyhow. It's done nothing but backfire. We want out. And they voted on it.
Well,
and it wasn't even as close as...
Let's state the obvious. The obvious is Angela Merkel allowed 1 million people that don't fit from a corrupt religion into the European Union, and the white people over there, the Caucasoids, are too limp-wristed to say, we don't care.
No matter how much they get attacked.
Where the hell's Caucasia?
It's
over there in EU. It really is. It's over there. Go.
Yeah.
I'll show it to you.
Okay,
It's on a map.
I need to see it on a map.
But that's exactly the point from it. They got tired of losing their sovereignty and watching the culture get shifted to one side in lieu of these other people that are coming in they're not interested in assimilating.
It's a global phenomenon. Look,
Yes, it is.
the same push that led to Brexit led to the election of Donald Trump.
Yes.
Exactly.
As much as people don't want to admit it.
Yes. It's the same. I mean, globally, people were going towards this socialistic kumbaya. Look, it doesn't work.
Right.
It puts lives in danger.
And look, we had a president here who was trying to push that for a long time.
Well, yes. Here's the other thing. Historical Alzheimer's, and they can't see 3 feet in front of their faces. The European Union is going through all of this right now. They're at that particular point. Obama wanted to take us back to the point where we were 3 or 4 years behind the European Union, and we'd have to go through all this crap again ourselves. They can't understand, they can't see why the EU is in its current dire straits. They can't understand that Brussels is an unelected government of people sitting, a body sitting, is telling all these other nations what the hell to do. And no one elected them. No one.
Right, and that's what happens when you give up power to a group that doesn't deserve
yes.
it.
And you have no input, and they regulate from on high, and you have to do it.
And I'd like to remind everyone that Brexit wasn't the first time that English citizens stood up against a faceless, nameless, overbearing government. I believe sometime around 1776 there was another group of freedom lovers who did the exact same thing. I'm just saying.
Right,
we
I
need
heard.
a lot of change in this country.
I heard.
I'm just saying.
Then again in 1812.
And we tipped it off. If you look at all the people that got away from the crown, we tipped it off. People looked at this country and realized, hey, they can do it, we can do it too, and a lot of countries fought back.
Yeah, how the hell did the Bahamas do it, though? They're not even a big nation.
Well, they probably made a deal with them. We're like, hey, you know what, we'll let you stay here.
They've got great shirts and sunglasses, though.
Australia just hung out and said, well, we're too far away, so I guess we'll just hang out.
Well, to a point. But when your entire island's populated by prisoners, I mean, what kind of start can you expect?
Well, listen, we had Alcatraz. They had.
And then here's the funniest part about Australia: you start off with this humongous.
Careful with this
population-
Australia stuff.
I know, with this huge population of prisoners as an island, and that was a prison island. That's what it was. They sent them to the most dangerous. And now they're like some of the most polite and friendly people that you can meet in the entire world.
Now, if they were all prisoners, how did they breed?
Well, they'd have to carry this really long, clanking ball
Right?
and chain,
Is it like an all-male prison? Was it like Jurassic Park where some of them spontaneously turned female? Like, how did this population growth and how did this turn from a prison colony into a country?
Well, there were Aboriginals already living on the island.
You know, that's a book. You should write it.
You should write it.
I'm already writing a book. It's called What Could Possibly Go Wrong? The Autobiography of Me.
What's the worst that could
What's
happen?
the worst that could happen?
That's chapter 1. That's the intro.
No, that's going to be my follow-up book.
Agador in the chat room at SHR Media says, you have to admit, when the UK did Alcatraz, they did it big. Yeah, no, they weren't messing around with it.
Yeah, they did.
But to sit here and to go back to the original point, which is them saying we're no longer a democracy, it goes
We're
to
a flawed
show
democracy.
It goes to show you what the left does. And I was thinking about writing this piece today.
So are you saying that this entire group is leftist by our standards? Because they're a bunch of limey Brits.
Yeah, I think they're leftist by
And
our
I mean
standards.
that in the most loving way possible.
Here's what the left does in this country. They throw out factual arguments and get on emotional arguments.
But what
And
do they
get
do in that country?
That's what they're doing with this report to us right now. People are going to read that and say, see, we're not a pure democracy. Our rights have been scalded, blah, 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 blah. They're not going to turn around and have the forethought to go, you're 100% right. We are no longer a democracy. We never have been.
Right.
We're a constitutional republic. But
Right, so
no,
take us off the list altogether.
they preyed on emotions, and now people will resolve. It's just like this country since November. The left is all emotion. No facts are involved whatsoever. You see them going after the Electoral College. Oh, it's just this way to get rich people in. It's like, no, that's not what the Electoral College is. It represents smaller communities to make sure that it's not mob rule.
Otherwise, California and
New York
would
and
rule
Boston,
everything.
Philadelphia,
Yep.
they would all, DC, they would all rule everything.
ADD moment, I'm sorry, Sean.
Squirrel.
You and I have not yet mentioned this, and we've been remiss because we've done it every year since we've been on the show. 19 days to pitchers and catchers.
19 days, pitchers and catchers.
Sorry, go
Coming
ahead.
around the block.
You were saying?
Coming around the block.
Yeah, missed
But-
it in General Jackassery. Sorry.
But you know, they went after the Electoral College, and then they will go after emotionally.
Which they wouldn't have gone after had they won.
Absolutely
Of
not.
course.
Of course not.
Of course.
Of course. What did you hear under Obama? This is the system we live in. And if anybody who wants to talk about the election not being legitimate, they're racists.
Right.
Yeah, elections have consequences.
Elections have consequences.
And you look at some of the
I've
groups.
got a pen and a phone.
Right.
You look
And he
at
did.
some of the groups that have gone absolutely insane over
The
this
broads.
past weekend. The anarchists.
Madonna.
Well, we'll get to that. Is that up?
That was under Inaugural Broads of America. We didn't get to
we
that.
didn't get to Madonna.
Madonna.
She's almost not worth getting to.
And there was,
She how is she not being investigated?
She is, by the
Oh,
way.
good.
yes.
Good. I
The
didn't
newest
see that
info
report.
is that, yes, she is.
One of the funniest tweets that I saw is, well, she's blown everybody else. Why not the White House?
Wow.
And I said, quite frankly, I don't think
You heard
the
about
White-
Linda Lovelace, right?
I know of her.
Really?
Yes.
Her grandmother went down on the Titanic.
I like that.
Thank you.
I like that.
I'll be
that
here.
was classic.
I'll be here all night, tip you, waitress.
Here's the thing about these lunatics who are coming out, like Madonna and some of the other women at that
Ashley
march.
Judd.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was so.
And then her sister came out and annihilated her.
Yes.
That was great.
Yes.
My favorite video from this weekend was there was this rather masculine-looking woman at the Women's March with this green hat and the real big kind of nerdy sunglasses. And as soon as the inauguration happened, she was kneeling and screaming at the top of her lungs. If you go to my Facebook
Oh, I
page,
saw that.
Sackhead
Yes,
Sean,
yes.
There's somebody put it to this ultra heavy metal soundtrack of her screaming. It's awesome. I sent it out on my Facebook today. I sent it to Jersey Joe because he's a metal fan as well. And I said, Trump's so good. He's even got some influence on heavy metal now. Look at the song. It's awesome. Right? But you have...
He's had a lot of influence on women.
I know, right?
Look how many of them he got out to walk.
Exactly.
Right? Michelle
Exactly.
Obama couldn't do that in 8 years.
Nope. She tried and tried, but couldn't get him to do it. That was the healthiest day in years right there for women.
Note to leftists, there has never been a lasting democracy in the history of the world.
No. And the longest running republic crumbled under its own weight because it became too diverse. Rome.
Yeah. Yeah.
When they had mercenaries fighting their wars for them.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I actually just started reading I think it's 6 volumes, Gibbons, The Rise and Fall, or the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire.
That's heady stuff.
1746, I think it was. It was not required. All of the founders read it. That's what they studied. They studied Gibbons and the decline of the Roman Empire, and that's the reason they set up the Constitution the way it is. In my opinion, that should be required reading in all middle schools and high schools, because you have to understand the decline and fall of the Roman Empire in order to understand why our constitutional system
We
is
have
set up the way
I
it
am
is.
convinced, Clint, we have elected officials in Washington who have never read the Constitution from front to back or read the entire Bill of Rights. Or read the Federalist Papers.
I agree. Or the notes on the Federal Convention. Right? Madison's notes.
I know there are those, and further, they couldn't give a shite less.
No, they couldn't. So, I just started reading this. Anyways, I wanted to tell you, BC, for Christmas you got me 1984. Wow.
Did you started it?
Yes.
Do you not see every possible comparison?
I do. I'm completely blown away. So I wanted to first of all say thank you so much for that, because it's a book I'd heard of. I'd never read it before, and wow.
And now here's the deal. Now that you see what's going on around you here, and you note the correlation between that book,
yes,
and the time you're living in now,
yes,
is it not staggering that he wrote that?
No, it absolutely is.
Back in the 40s.
There's no doubt. Very
it's
strange.
just,
and I'm convinced it was based on what he saw going on in Europe at the time.
Specifically England.
Specifically Italy. But the way, I mean, just seeing where we are today with that, I was completely blown away. There was also a Twilight Zone episode that reminded me kind of like that also, and it's where the librarian was found to be obsolete by the state. And so he was sentenced to death because he's obsolete.
Folks, let me give you a homework assignment. and just for a moment here, I'm going to be serious. Kurt Vonnegut, who was a leftist, wrote one of the finest short stories I've ever read. It's called Harrison, Harrison, Bergeron, Bergeron. You can read the whole thing on the internet. It's there to read for free. Come back, read that, and let's chat next week. Harrison Bergeron, because we're going there right now.
Oh, good, a homework assignment.
A homework assignment. Oh, God, another one. Anyway, so I think it ties back into this U.S. no longer a democracy segment, because here we're talking about the fact that we're Republican, the fact that we were in decline. Hopefully Trump can turn that around, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in the top of the hour. But it's kind of interesting where we are, and the fact that, well, we're no longer a democracy. That's actually a good thing, folks.
It is a good thing.
That's a perfect thing. We want to be a flawed democracy.
Just like Trump said, the people come before the government. That's a constitutional republic.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. But if you haven't read or started Gibbons, I'm not going to have this as a homework assignment because it is literally 6 volumes. Another one that I'm kind of I read several books at one time. I have ADD like that.
Me too.
But I have the biography of George Washington, which was written by James Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. From a perspective of the Supreme Court Justice, or John Marshall, I'm sorry. It's another phenomenal, but again, it's like 5 volumes long. But very good reading. But you have to study and understand our history to have a perspective. So I was talking with Ack earlier this week, the ambulance chasing hack. Matter of fact, I might even still have the conversation in my text messages here. No, I don't. I deleted it. I was gonna totally. I deleted it. So look, this guy is obviously. I mean, he's an attorney, but obviously he's not a very good one because he's an ambulance chaser. I mean, so I take that with a grain of salt. But look, this guy claims to have studied the Constitution at some point. And I think he got the Cliff's Notes version, which I didn't even know that existed. But that's what I'm going with here. Because I started talking about original intent, and he started going down the road of living, breathing document. And I started going down the road of, well, here's what the founders said about that. And there was no, for an educated guy, and we give him a hard time, but actually I love the guy to death. Really, really good guy. He's actually pretty smart in his own way. You know, kind of like an autistic child kind of way. And I love how you guys are laughing and doing the belly laughs but you won't laugh out loud because that's such a protected thing. You don't want your listeners to know what a bunch of a-holes we are here. Just me.
I merely am not shocked that you actually said it. That's all.
Okay.
It's really what it comes down to.
But no, the guy is very smart. But he's very smart in a way where you wouldn't think it because he says some really stupid stuff.
Good. Good.
You know what I'm saying?
He's kind of like Farmer Fran from Waterboy.
Yes!
He has those occasional moments of clarity, but the rest of the time can barely tie his shoes.
Yes, but deep down he's a genius.
Right.
Pizza sellers
kinda
from being there.
Who was the Fonz's character in that?
Yeah.
Where he's got like this great playbook, but
Henry
it
Winkler.
won't come out. Yes.
Yeah.
I think he has a tattoo of Roy Orbison on his ass too. That ambulance chasing hack does, which is interesting. I think he has Roy Orbison on one side and like Willie Nelson on the other. It's kind of bizarre. So,
and he likes to stand in front of a mirror and make him kiss. That's neither here nor there.
Listen, that may or may not be true.
That's true.
It's true. We think.
I'm pretty sure I can confirm it.
I did.
It's like they're kissing a rubber band.
How'd they go in the cave? I don't even know how they do that. But he's talking about a living, breathing document and everything else. So I go down this road of no, like certain principles don't change. Interpretations change. Fundamentals don't change. 2 + 2 = 4 in 1776.
It still does.
2 + 2 still equals 4 today.
Well,
hang on. The principles of freedom and the principles of a republic and representative government were true in ancient Rome, just as they were true in 1776. They were just as effective to grow the Roman Empire as they were just as effective to grow the United States of America. They were flawed in the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire failed. The founders studied that, put in place the Constitution to prohibit those principles in this country from failing here. We've since usurped it. We've gotten away from it. We've perverted it because it's a living, breathing, changing, interpretive document. And as a result of that, we're in decline, and we have been.
I agree.
I have a question for everybody.
So,
Also-
Sean, I'm sorry. Sean had something.
Well, I was going to say is 2 + 2 = 4, as you said, except with Common Core.
Or new math.
Where it doesn't always equal 4, depending on what you want the outcome to be.
And spelling doesn't count.
Right. Spelling's not even a WTF is a perfectly acceptable
Certainly.
statement
LOL,
in school now.
WTF.
Yeah. So, I just want to say that history has changed in the fact that 2 + 2 does not equal 4 by today's standards. But the problem is kids are being taught that 2 + 2 aren't equaling 4. That's the problem. Instead of, and obviously I'm being sarcastic when I say that it doesn't equal 4. But they're teaching all this BS now. I look at my kids' homework and I'm just like, how are you supposed to learn this? The answers are there. There's no constructive thinking. You don't have to go and put the work in. The answers are all there. They're just hidden in code. Well, life isn't hidden in code. Sometimes you have to do the workout, do long division, etc. BZ, I cut you off. Go ahead, sir.
I have a question.
Have 30 seconds.
Thank you. Up, go.
10.
Question for everybody, and we can after the break we can come back and see if you guys have an answer that you'd like to come up with. Sean and Clint, people listening live and in the podcast, do we have people here today, scholars, who would be sufficiently intelligent to craft another constitution? They did it back then.
The sackheads.
In the 1700s. Are the people existent today who could do it again?
Yes. Look, I'm being completely serious. Based on my understanding, the Constitution is not a difficult document to understand.
It's actually very short.
It's actually very short, sweet, to the point, and simple to understand.
And
if you take the time.
That's its brilliance.
Yes. Look, I could craft a Constitution today that basically reestablishes all these principles. I don't think we want an attorney establishing this stuff.
No, that's the problem.
No,
judge.
Are there people with a sufficient amount of common sense?
Yes. There's some right
to
here
do
in
that.
this room, and I'm not saying that from an egotistical standpoint, but anybody with a understanding of the founders and of the principles that our Constitution was founded on, and an understanding of history in terms of the original intent of the Constitution and what that original intent was founded on. The decline and fall of the Roman Empire. economist.
Wealth of Nations.
Yeah, Wealth of Nations. Another huge impact on our founders in terms of setting up our economic system. Or the understanding of, Blackstone's commentaries on the laws, Hobbes. Anybody with that understanding, and most of those people, folks, are self-taught. You don't get those classes in college.
And see, the reason I asked that question, yes, you just hit the point, Clint. The reason I asked that question is for the current generation and the future generations.
Yeah.
Would they have that capability?
It depends.
Considering what they're taught now.
It depends.
I say that
our kids will.
We have a few seconds.
Our kids will.
I agree. I think that there is still a group of people who did not go to college but have still been very successful when it comes to economy that could tell you how to run an economy properly. There's still a lot of people who understand liberty and freedom. The problem is they've been silent for 8 years because they're sick of listening to it. So it'll be interesting to see how many more, and we saw a decent amount come out for this last election, but it'll be interesting to see how many more start to pop up here in the future, seeing what this last election did. We're up against a break, folks. Mm-hmm. When we come back, I think I have a segment.
You do.
Hey.
Trumped up presidency.
Look at that, the trumped up presidency.
Yeah,
right
only
here.
the most important one. Fine.
No big
Yeah, but
deal.
it's going to be, if you look right underneath that, it says the discussion continues freestyle. Nobody owns the conversation.
Conservative media.
I got shut down, didn't I?
Right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Socialism, so common, is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guide. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean,
Dude, I'm not saying half of the stupid pro.
Sackhead Clint,
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking, drinking, drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com and highplainsdailynews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network. So last Friday, a couple little things happened in this country.
Really?
Yeah. changing of the guard, so to speak. Barack Obama officially left the White House on Executive One, which was not Marine One. It's the same helicopter, but they just changed the call sign because he's no longer the
They called him
president.
what?
It's Executive One.
Executive One?
Which is standard.
But
They
he's not
called
the-
him
but he-
Flipper. Lives in a world full of wonder.
But he's not the first executive anymore. They should call it Executive 3.
No, the executive designation are for former presidents and people of stature.
So
that's what they use that
So
for.
does that mean Bush is now Executive 2?
I think if they're on it,
It just like keeps bumping down.
if they're all in the air at the same time, I believe so. Honestly,
No, I wasn't. I was being serious.
I believe if they're all on air on an air ride one way or the other, then it bumps down. However, if there's only one at a time, then it's Exec One.
Sean, here's what we're doing. When I become president, and
God.
you're my press secretary or chief of staff, whatever you want,
Right.
and BZ you're the other. I want to fly in like an ultralight, and I want that.
Or do you want to be the second Cessna that crashes into the White House?
Right, or a Cessna. I want something weird to be Air Force One.
Oh, I think that'd be great.
I want to fly like a Southwest flight and like high five the captain and be like, dude, you got to go out as Air Force One.
Let's go, nailing it, nailing it.
But Mr. President, you have this awesome jet. I don't care.
Yeah, no,
I'm flying SWA, baby.
Yeah, and for the record, I'm in B group, so don't leave without me. I didn't want to spend the extra $25.
Hey, I get my points for this, right?
We could do a Zeppelin. Good point from Agador in the chat room at
Ooh.
SHR Media. We could do a Zeppelin, and Mark could be the captain.
Yes.
I think that would be awesome.
Nice. Now that's old school.
Yes.
Yes.
No, but they're bringing it back.
They're bringing it back.
They're bringing back Zeppelins. Isn't
As
that-
well they should.
I think they
Okay.
should as well. So
So
let's move on, though, to the actual inauguration. And
Okay.
Because we're going
I was going to say one more thing. Now that Trump is president, we have to apply for our letters of marque.
I agree. Officially.
We have to officially apply for letters of marque.
I agree. And then actually start working on saving an aircraft carrier that's coming out of service.
Right.
Those two things need to be
You know what? Trump might just give it to us.
You never know, right?
We're crazy enough for
We
him.
are crazy enough for him. So, with former President Barack Obama leaving on Executive One, the 45th President Donald Trump was sworn in front of a humongous crowd. One of the big things, and as we go through this, I want to point out where the liberal hypocrisy has been and just the ridiculousness that they've tried to pull.
Oh, it's
There was a picture being sent around
rampant.
through media websites, official news, quote unquote, official news websites, and social media of the inauguration ceremony that was half filled and compared to Barack Obama's two inaugurations, or the one inauguration and the second, whatever he did. And they were saying, oh, there wasn't nearly as many people there, blah, 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 blah. That photo that's being sent around that shows all the white tarps that people were standing on was taken at 12 in the afternoon, well before the inauguration. And they're pushing that. CNN actually released a very high-def picture of the inauguration that shows a true depiction on how packed.
CNN did?
Yes, and that just came out today, did
Yes,
it not?
and it is enormous.
There was an update.
You could truly see how many people were there.
Why
And
would
and it was
CNN do
taken
that?
at the
That's a good question.
It was taken at the exact moment that he was sworn in as president. So
why would CNN do that?
If you pull up that picture, and it's actually a pretty amazing picture. I messed around with it a little bit today. You need to go and find former President George W. Bush. He's sitting to the right of the.
W went.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, George. He was there. He and his wife.
But
Hillary was there.
Yes.
Yes. I want to get to that in a second because man,
And,
you want to talk about
Jimmy Carter and his wife were there.
Yep.
I think the former presidents should be there.
Yeah, they could. The only one who didn't is George H.W., and that's because he was ill. He was in ICU. So
that's no excuse, but whatever.
But if you get a moment, look at George W. Bush, because out of all the people at that inauguration, out of the millions of people that you can see face shots of, he's the only one looking directly into the camera that took the picture.
Really?
And it is absolutely amazing. I couldn't believe it. It was the most insane thing I had seen. Looking right into the camera, right? And the camera was so far away, it wasn't even funny.
He's like a ninja.
somebody dubbed him because they have the pictures of him fighting with that rain tarp.
Yeah.
Which I think he was doing to be funny.
Yeah.
Somebody dubbed him the cutest president ever. Just because of his little mannerisms and stuff like that. And I actually agree with that. I was like, no, it was kind of adorable, right? Just watching him.
You're so cute.
You're just so funny.
So cute.
The inauguration was underway, and obviously after Vice President Mike Pence was sworn in, came the big moment where President Donald Trump was sworn in. And the speech that Donald Trump gave, I immediately said, by the way, thank you to Jersey Joe to having me just before the inauguration on this show, but I said was the most American speech I've heard from a president in 8 years. Now, does that mean that everything in it was absolutely perfect and sunshine and roses? No. Was the totality of the speech a very pro-American, a very pro-Trump, and a very positive message?
An extremely important notation, if I may stop here for a second. He referred I 3 times.
Right.
3.
Right. Only 3.
The rest were we.
And that's a huge
that's
change of pace.
telling.
That's a huge change of pace compared to the executive who is just there.
Well, not only that, you look at the actions he's taken, and I know we'll get to this. I'm not trying to showbiz it, but you look at what he's done in this short amount of time. Even before he was president, some of the moves he was making with Carrier and Ford. Look, this guy, he keeps going down this road. He is going to be a 2-term president, and he is going to turn even more states.
And the
red.
reason and what you're saying is so incredibly important because that's the base motivator behind everything that's going on. The leftists, Democrats, etc., are all shitting their pants because they're afraid he's going to be successful.
Well,
and he is going to be if he keeps down this road.
There is little diapers full of tofu all over this country right now. I mean, you look some of the first things that he did. Let's talk about the executive orders.
Yeah.
I do want to mention Bill Clinton getting caught staring at Melania.
Oh, that was a great photograph.
Did he really?
With Hillary staring at him.
She's to his right, looking at him, looking at her.
Agador reminded me in the chat room, Dave did. Oh, it was just so classic Clinton.
It's perfect. It's just perfect.
And one more thing.
He's like, man, I wish my first lady had looked like that.
Hey, hell, check out oh, shit.
Hey, where's Biden?
One more thing, too. There's just to fix some of the social media bullshit that's going on, there's a picture of the day of the inauguration of Obama putting the 2 ladies in front of him to enter the White House, and Trump was walking in front of them. And it went on this whole, like, how he's just this masculine dickhead and he doesn't care about women, blah, 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 blah.
Of course.
Speech. Somebody was smart enough to put the entire video. The reason he was walking in front of everybody is so he could open the door for the ladies to go in first. And they didn't. They only still shotted the picture of Trump being a couple feet in front of Mrs. Trump and Mrs. Obama. But they quickly were like, oh, look at what a misogynist he is. He just walks in front of these women. He has no graces. If you watch the video, he actually opened the door for the ladies.
The second door?
Yes, the inner door.
Yeah.
He was holding it for him appropriately. So just so you know the BS that's out there. But let's talk about.
And of course, Obama didn't come out and say, well, no, he actually held the door for my wife.
No.
Because that would be a stand-up thing for him to do.
Right. Well, you won't hear from him until it's time for him to make another run.
He can't.
He's going to try.
He can't.
Let's not even go down this road. We've talked about this.
He's right.
So let's get into executive orders
I'm sure it's
and
gonna be
actions
fine.
right off the bat. First and foremost, a lot of people are complaining about some of the executive actions and how quickly he's issuing them. A vast majority
Who did he learn from?
Well, he's also undoing a lot of what Obama did.
That's exactly it.
And so,
That is
I
exactly
talked about this, I think, 2 weeks ago. When they're going to come out and throw it all, the number of executive actions, how many of them were to undo Obama executive actions? They still follow technically under executive actions. How many of them will be for that? He went ahead, first of all, with the Keystone and the other pipeline there, signed executive action. He put some federal focus on that. Energy, right off the bat, first couple days, absolutely amazing. Let's see, the Mexico City executive action that's going to reduce or destroy funding for abortions outside of the country.
Right.
That's a humongous one. Dakota Pipeline. Thank you, Dave. That's a big one.
Why should we pay for that?
Why should we pay for that?
The wall?
Well, right. So he signed one today, getting federal funding towards the wall. And it's really just a directing of the federal funding that's already in place.
Right. It's directing the agencies to look at funding and how we can use existing funding.
No, that funding was already encumbered.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying.
It's encumbered.
To look at that funding
They've refused
and how
to
best,
use it.
Yes, how best we can use that funding to start the project. That's what it was. I do like Peña Nieto says, no, Mexico's not paying for Trump's border wall.
Oh, you will. One way
or another.
He doesn't. People interpret that as he's going to write him a check. No.
Nope.
No.
Here's how you're going to pay for it.
We're
going to tax and tariff the
hell out of you,
out of everything that comes into and out of your country.
And that's how they're going to pay. I agree wholeheartedly.
Well, and he's fighting for Mexico now because he's already lost 3,000 to 7,000 potential jobs in Mexico. If we actually start to shut down people coming in from Mexico, and that's the other thing. It's not just Mexicans coming into the United States.
It's everybody else too.
It's everybody from South America, and it's also people from Muslim countries coming in.
The left pushes the emotion. It's the poor Mexican families. Clint, out of the executive, those are my two big ones that I thought really stood out to me as far as executive orders that he took care of right away. Getting that pipeline, hey, look, we're going down Energy Road, we're going down jobs, we're going to reduce our dependency on foreign oil, and I think you're going to start seeing the ban lifted on drilling in federally owned lands.
Some of those EPA regulations.
I think he's setting that up, so I think that's pretty good.
Well, yeah, one of his picks is an Exxon Mobil exec. I mean, of course.
Question: why did Deepwater Horizon cork off from BP? Answer: because it had to be placed at such a distance from the coast of the United States because they could not come within that distance due to the environmental regulations.
It would not be
the
safe.
corollary to that is the further away you go, what happens? It gets deeper. The deeper you have to drill, the more dangerous it becomes. Who created Deepwater Horizon? The United
government.
States of America. Thank you.
Clint, executive actions, what say you so far?
Obamacare. Hands down. One of my look. He campaigned on it. He came out. He signed it. I mean, it's talking about, hey, you're going to ease these regulations. You're going to ease the burden on the American people while we look at how we're going to repeal and replace it. Hands down, that was he campaigned on it. He sat down. He signed it right off the bat. The other one I like is I like the order talking about how we're basically going to be doing immigration.
Yes.
For Syria, Iran, all those high risk countries.
Well, and he's going to name the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization. Duh.
Yeah. Yeah. So and again the wall. So all of the actions he's taking are appropriate. I want to talk about Supreme Court justices also.
That's
real
where
quick.
the bat. Oh my God! Would there be a battle?
Before we go down that road, let me kick the same question.
I'm sorry.
to Mark.
Go ahead.
Any executive orders other than the ones mentioned that you deemed pretty noteworthy?
I'd have to go to the Keystone XL because he's actually talking about it in public. I didn't quite think that he was going to go there this early.
Oh,
but
he went quick.
Yes, he did. But here's the other thing that leftists don't tell you. There are already literally thousands of miles of active petroleum and gas pipelines all throughout the United States. And mostly they run right along the right-of-way of railroads.
Yes. Well, and here's the thing. Taking them
already in.
Taking them off the railroads makes it safer. How many times have we seen in the last year you've had explosions with oil tankers and other fuel tankers in small towns where the towns get decimated almost? It's happened a few times in the last year alone. That alone, you could argue that you're protecting citizens. Not that you need to argue it right now, but you very well could. And as Dave points out in the chat room so astutely, you're also going to have it done with American steel.
Yes.
Which is going to be a huge.
Yep, I forgot to mention that.
You look at the jobs that are starting to come out of that one executive action.
But we talked about this, I don't remember if it was 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. We talked about the fact when he was bringing the Ford back to Michigan, we talked about steel back in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
And
big
I don't know if I brought it up or we brought it up and
probably
talked.
me because I'm smart.
Yeah, probably. That's what I was thinking. But we brought it up and talking about specifically if steel comes back to Pennsylvania, to Pittsburgh, that country's going to stay red for the next
that whole country
2, 3,
will
2,
be
3
right. That whole country
the whole country's going to turn red.
Well, see,
like last time Washington was elected.
Right.
When he said American steel, though, that caused me great concern because I didn't know. Do we have the infrastructure in the United States to
Not yet.
forge that amount of steel?
Not yet, but with what he's going to do and
with
can
the
do with
EPA and rollbacks
and with business, like he's already done with Carrier, like he's already done with Ford, like he's already talking with GM.
But
those benefits are going to be in place for private money used to revitalize that business, not federal
But you
stimulus.
think about how many people are going to come back and there are companies chomping at the bit to open up those businesses.
Yes,
and
but
here's
that's
the
what I
other
mean,
thing.
private funding, not federal stimulus dollars.
When he rolls back the EPA stuff on some of those things, it's not going to be just for Pittsburgh. It's not going to be just for steel. It's going to affect other industries.
Well, you become a strong nation by building things.
Industry.
And building the things that people need to build things.
And the other things, and this is me just thinking with my political pundit brain, you brought up a good point. Do we have the infrastructure right now? No, it's probably going to take a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
How many people are going to be either back to work rebuilding those plants or working in those plants that are going to have to go to the polls in, say, 4 years? Politically, if you look at a timeline, it takes a couple years to get those plants up and running. It's not going to happen overnight.
Nope.
He may be setting himself up politically in a very smart way.
Well, not only
all
that,
of a sudden you have all these people working that want to vote.
Well, not
and
only
getting paid well.
Not only that, but by the end of that, because he's already talking to the unions.
Yes.
At the end of
today,
yes.
Now you've got union leaders
liking
who
liking
voted
Trump
for Hillary Clinton, who were supporting Hillary Clinton on their little hands and knees, going into his office and saying, "Okay, how can we help you?"
Yes, but not only that, he's saying, I want you to help me because I want American jobs here, just like you want American jobs here.
Yeah.
And in 8 years, when these plants have been operating for 4 years, 6 years, like you say, Sean, that's going to set up Mike Pence to run. I mean, you look at what happened with Reagan, right? You had Reagan, Bush screwed it up. But Bush, the Republicans held the presidency for 12 years because of those Reaganomics. Trump is setting himself up in the same way. He's not stupid. The man is brilliant. You don't get as successful as he got by being stupid. You can think he's a buffoon. You can think he's pompous, whatever it is.
Now, he could have run his dad's company completely into the ground.
He could have. The man is very, very intelligent, knows how to build wealth, knows how to manage wealth, and knows how to get people working.
Yep.
And if he keeps on this track, and if Congress allows him, don't get me wrong, I want Congress to still be a check on the president. So please, nobody misunderstand what I'm saying.
Yeah, but if he keeps doing good things,
and Congress doesn't screw with him
constitutional things
for political reasons, then they would be stupid. The Democrats are in trouble right now.
Well, and I think you're going to start seeing Democrats even start siding with him very, very soon. Those who maybe not. Because
the Democrats are in trouble right now. Who do they have?
They have 2 years to get themselves reelected in their districts.
And the Republicans in every blue state should be focusing on somebody who's very, very electable. In California,
there's 100 seats up at least, I think, in 2 years.
I think in California, the Republicans should be looking at somebody like Tom McClintock to go after the governor.
Tom McClintock, my God,
because if they run
smart guy.
If they run somebody like a George Barr, I'm just making names up here. They're not going to. The Dems are going to stay in power,
right?
But if the Republicans do it smart and the country's progressing down that road, you could see California go red.
See, while you're thinking about that, the Dems, meanwhile, are doubling down on stupid by way of the DNC. Keith Ellison, for one.
Yep.
Did you see
Yes,
the
they
video, ladies and gentlemen? You, Sean, Clint, people that are listening, podcast, whatever, go find the video of the white chick talking at the DNC,
We need to
telling
silence
that
white people.
it's incumbent upon white people
She's
to
one of
shut
the
up.
leaders.
Yes.
And I say, you know what, DNC? Hire her.
No, keep going.
Take
keep
her.
Going.
You bet.
We
Put
love it.
her
Go for
in
it.
charge. Yes.
There's-
Double down.
We also have right here in Calexico. No, wait, Sacramento. In February, we have the California State GOP convention right up the road from us, which we may pop into. But there's also another young woman in California who needs to be looked at too for leadership in California. Her name is Melissa Melendez. She's out of Lake County. Really good conservative. I've been following her for a while now. She comes from a very conservative area. I think that there's some people here that you're going to see that need to be pushed, but you're going to see Democrats start jumping on board too, because these districts, some of these districts that will be affected heavily, Pittsburgh, right? If the steel goes back and you have all these jobs come back, and all of a sudden Detroit as well, with all these auto industries starting to come, if the auto industry booms back like it looks like Ford may do specifically, you're going to have people all of a sudden go, hey, who put me to work?
Here's the other thing. There are tons of properties
Yes.
that were once those that can be rebuilt again on land that's remarkably cheap.
Yes.
If it's not a super fund already.
Right. And there'll be people going after it. So just by doing that one executive action, he's setting up a lot of things to go in motion. And like I said, you're going to get Democrats who are going to have to either side with him or answer the constituents. And their constituents may not be as polite after they see progress being made.
Exactly. Nothing succeeds like success,
right?
Which is why they don't want him to succeed.
By the way, if you're going to buy land in Detroit or Pittsburgh, now's the time to do it.
Oh, hell yes.
And you can send me the dividend check later.
You know what? Just something happened in the first few days, and I want to get to this before the break. I'm sorry because I know we have more discussion.
Go ahead, buddy.
This is a quick segment. But on Tuesday, yesterday, the Russians flew a couple of bombers around Japan. And if you remember when Obama did this, I don't ever remember a news story saying that the threat posture was increased at all when we did that. NORAD immediately increased its threat posture.
No, that's weird, right?
They sent 2 bombers around the island. NORAD sent up its threat posture and had a tanker on station ready to go to refuel the Japanese jets if it had to respond.
Well, that's
I don't remember ever hearing anything like that
also-
when Russia did anything like that when Obama was president.
Well, how many hours?
I could be wrong, but
how
I don't
many
remember
hours
hearing
after
that.
Mattis was sworn in, did we drop 31 sortie bombing runs on ISIS?
B-2s.
31.
Right.
31 runs were made within 10 hours of him being sworn in. Maybe the plan was in place prior. I don't know. But it's just ironic that you have those 2 events back to back. What does that say to our adversaries across the world?
Don't F with us.
Don't F with us. Hey, you know what?
Well, China is already pushing back because Trump has said you will not be building anything else
On the
in international waters.
Yes. He's taken a strong stance right off the bat with the people that he needs to be. But during his inauguration speech, he reached out to our allies, too. We will be forging relationships. We will be repairing relationships. I think he was speaking specifically to Israel and some other allies. Both of those things back to back, I thought, were pretty great out of the inauguration itself. A couple things we want to talk about when we come back. Obviously, we're going to go on with some inauguration talk. I want to talk about Sean Spicer. And how he's dealt with the media. The first
I love
few
that
days.
guy.
Don't show
Okay,
visit. Don't
I'm
show
sorry.
visit.
I'm sorry. Damn it.
I know.
I'm
I know.
sorry.
I want to talk about that.
I'm sorry.
I do
Immediate
want to
reaction.
talk about everyone who's been confirmed and move on from there.
Like in the Catholic sense of the word?
Absolutely.
Or, okay.
All that and more on the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Cap was stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking, drinking, drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Yeah, I want to bring up 1XO first. Yeah. Oh, yes. Welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show live in the SHR Media Network, where we drink the tears of liberal crybabies. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, yes, it's glorious.
I was going to say where we swallow their souls and drain their mortality, but either way.
Right, one way or the other works, right? 2 executive actions that orders we want to talk about really quick before we move on that I forgot to mention. We talked about the wall, but we didn't talk about the other executive action, talking about stripping funding away from sanctuary cities who do not comply. And part of the border access one is the 10,000 immigration officers that will be needed to end the catch and release and just make it a return home for 5,000 agents that they're going to be hiring. Part of that catch and release program that's going to be changed is we're going to send them home, and if the nation doesn't want them, we're going to start looking at other ways to hurt that nation, i.e. funding.
Right, removing funding. That's one of the first logical things you do.
Absolutely.
Kick him in the gonads when it regards
we
cash.
Could use the money. We could use the money. Guarantee you that even if they take that person and jam them in their own prison cell for the rest of their life, that person will go home. Clint, you had a comment on an executive order.
I do. I had a comment on the Obamacare. One of the things that Trump said that he was going to go after the Obamacare on day one of presidency, and I'll be damned if that's the first thing he did. Like literally the first order he signed. But what's brilliant about it is he said that regulations that are in place, basically they not be enforced because at the time taxes are due on April 15th, the IRS is not going to have the authority to impose or collect those non-tax taxes.
Well, he stopped them from applying any more regulations.
Yes. And he said you can't tax them or make them pay the penalty on the individual mandate. So is TurboTax going to take that adjustment into effect? Because that program's already been written.
Uh-oh. Ken McClinton, I hope you heard that one.
Hey, listen, it's funny though that this year alone, why? And here's the thing: everyone's freaking out about. Oh, you remove Obamacare and people are going to go insane and all this other stuff. This is the first real big year that if you don't have health care coverage under Obamacare, it's a $700 fine.
Not anymore. It's not.
You were going to get whacked.
Not anymore. You're not.
So for the people that choose not to have it, he just saved you a completely.
He saved you a car payment.
Yeah, 2 car payments.
2 car payments.
And he just saved you a completely harsh tariff by the federal government on you and a personal choice. So, I briefly want to mention some of the confirmations that were made this week. And I think it's easier to say that so far it's going well. I did mention Mattis prior to the break.
Right.
Who every military person I personally have talked to are completely excited about the idea of Mattis. They think he's going to be wonderful. Anything? Do you see any hiccups with the confirmation that's left, BZ?
I think the first, he's going to get him. Sooner or later, he's going to get him. I really don't think that there's enough chuff to be able to do it. The biggest fight, and this will be the crux of the biscuit, is going to be next week, because that's when he makes his announcement for Supreme Court, and you can guarantee that the Democrats will come out with every gun blazing. Chucky Schumer.
No, they can't. You can't do that because they don't believe in guns.
Right.
Well, okay.
So you should rephrase that.
Little Chucky Schumer came out saying that. By the way, did you see the little kerfuffle that was up on the floor between little Chucky Schumer and Senator Tom Cotton that no one covered?
No.
Because basically, Chucky Schumer reneged on his promise to let some things slide through, and then he started becoming an obstructionist. And Tom Cotton popped off on him. I've been trying to find the exact words that occurred, and the media has not covered it at
because,
all. But basically what Tom Cotton said, and I served 8 years in Afghanistan, and that trumps your crap.
So if now, to use your term, he reneged on the promise. So
are you going to go there?
No, I'm simply asking a question. So that makes Tom Cotton the renege-e, correct? What?
I'm going to stop you there.
What?
Okay.
No, I'm asking a clarifying question.
No, I'm going to stop you there on this one.
I don't even understand why. You know what? The fact that you would even think that proves that you're the blatant bigot that everybody thinks you are. And I'm going to apologize to Ken McClinton right now.
Well, Ken already said Sean is such a racist.
Thank you very much.
Right there in chat. There it is. It's immured right there.
Thank you. I wasn't even going there.
It brought me right back to when the Baltimore riots were going on and Saturday Night Live did the bit where they were covering the empty ball game. And they were talking about Machado, and the guy who was playing Joe Buck said, he may have had the injury every day, but you know what? That knee grows stronger every single day. I'm sorry, I don't know why I would say that.
Oh, that's right. Jersey Joe in chat said, Schumer said Cotton wasn't here 8 years ago. Cotton said, I know I was getting shot at in Afghanistan.
Right? I love it when people I love it when they set themselves up for that. So, where were we before we went off on the rant of you?
Trump's inauguration?
We were on Trump's inauguration.
No, I know. We were going down the road, though. We talked about confirmations. I did have a question out of the chat room from Dave. Do you think Trump, and I'll pose this to you, gentlemen, do you think Trump can pull off recess appointments, and who? And then we'll get into the Supreme Court.
Look, I don't like recess appointments.
I don't like them at all.
I held Obama to the same standard, and I'm going to hold Trump to the same standard because I mean that's the right thing to do, and it's fair. I don't like executive orders, but Trump's executive orders they're ordering how he wants his executive agencies to handle.
Yes,
he's not trying to circumvent or write laws. He's ordering how he wants his agencies to perform, and he's not telling them to ignore laws. He's saying, hey, the IRS is not going to have the authority to do this because he knows Congress is going to pass the law. So
it's a tool to stop the tool that Obama used. But if he
is.
wants things to stay in, then they need to pass bills.
He did. President Trump did something else too, which is interesting. And Andrew Napolitano actually pointed it out in an article that he wrote. It was a very, very good article. And he points out that Donald Trump did something that no president has done since Thomas Jefferson. He wrote in his order that if a federal regulator or enforcer is enforcing a regulation or a law, and there's gray area, he ordered them to come down on the side of the individual, not the side of the government. That's not anything that has been done since Thomas Jefferson's presidency.
On the other hand, it is constitutional.
It is absolutely constitutional. And so because of that, I would think Trump would not go for the recess appointments. I would hope not. If he did, I would speak out and say, hey, I would prefer he wait for Congress. Or Congress shouldn't recess until the business is done. Congress should not recess before the cabinet is full.
Yes.
Congress
Agreed.
should not recess before a budget is passed.
They should be held to a standard.
But you know what will happen.
Right. I do know what will happen.
But it doesn't mean if that happens, I don't think it makes it means Trump is right to do that.
Yes.
I think that I know mathematically 2 negatives equal a positive, but I don't think that works out in life. So I think Trump could use that as a political tool. I think Trump could say, hey, I don't have a cabinet position of this. I'm going to use you as a temporary position. This is not an appointment. This is not a recess appointment.
You're a fill-in.
You're a fill-in. I need somebody to help me out with this, and you're it for the good of the country. But no, I'm not a fan of recess appointments.
And here's one of the biggest differences, too, between most of these executive orders, if not all of them, and then the executive orders done by the last president. The last president used executive orders to circumvent the Constitution, i.e. not enforcing immigration policy and not enforcing the borders. You circumvented our laws. If he is doing executive actions to undo those executive actions...
Then all he's doing is putting laws back in place that already exist.
Yes. And if he's doing things that he legally can do so, we've talked about executive orders at great length on this show. You can direct an agency that falls under the executive branch to begin going down certain roads that doesn't agree with funding because that comes from Congress. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a policy change, or as long as it doesn't circumvent a law or try to change a law, which needs to happen with Congress. Let's move on to Supreme Court because we only have 17 minutes left in the show here.
All the knives and daggers are going to come out on that one, guaranteed.
And
because it's such a huge deal.
It's so critical.
It is so critical.
And let me state up front, I'm going to be honest, I am completely biased. If we don't stack the crap out of the Supreme Court, this country is done.
Well,
and I specifically use that term. He needs to stack the crap out of the Supreme Court with as many people as he can. Number one, a replacement for Scalia, and you're going to have Ginsburg. Ginsburg, after seeing what's going on here, she's going to leave. She's
I
she's going to go.
I think she's going to hold on for as long as she possibly
absolutely.
can. Do you really think
yes.
so? Okay.
Yes, because she is not going to want the court to turn.
Because she knows what's going to happen. Even at best, if you put in somebody who's a centrist, you've taken half the votes easily away and given the most of the majority.
Well, and Kennedy's going to go too.
Look, Kennedy's kind of been that swing vote, right?
He has been that swing vote. But if you
here's
take a moderate and replace it with somebody that you think is not going to be a John Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so here's what you potentially have, right? You have Scalia being replaced, so that's a conservative. So that would be that would be a split on the court with Kennedy being the deciding, right? If Kennedy goes, now you have a true 5-4. You have a true 5-4 split on the Supreme Court stacked in the conservative favor. You're still one conservative away from tipping the court and the other. If Ruth Bader Ginsburg goes, now you have a 6-4 conservative.
And
you have a cushion.
5-4 was tenuous every time. Critical decisions were made on 5-4.
Yes.
They shouldn't be that close.
No, not on that critical of a decision. Absolutely not. So this next president, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Trump could have the ability of 3, potentially 4.
One of the biggest reasons
justices.
We've talked about it leading into the election. One of the biggest reasons to keep Hillary out of the White House.
That was
that
me.
potential
Critical,
and that was huge.
That was what this election was all
and
about.
People are saying that we need Scalia's appointment to be more to the right than Bork was.
But Bork was highly intelligent.
Yes, very highly intelligent.
He was a wonderful jurist.
As was Scalia.
That was very sad.
Scalia was honestly probably one of my favorite Supreme Court justice ever, just for his dissents alone. He wrote some absolutely amazing.
They were grand to read.
You suck.
Essentially,
basically,
he would go down and tell them
In
why they were
essence.
idiots in nice
Yes.
languages. But then it also showed you what a great guy he was, because his relationship with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is so far under the left, they still had an amazing relationship. So he wasn't just an amazing jurist, but he was a good man, and you could tell that. The other issues that are coming up with courts is not only is the Supreme Court a big deal, but you now have federal courts that you have to start looking at, and appellate courts.
Well, D.C. court. D.C. is like the number 2 under the Supreme Court.
Right. So you have D.C. and the 9th in San Francisco for all the West Coast cases.
Oh, the 9th is lost.
Well, but here's the thing. If in the next 4 years, even if he replaces 2 or 3 judges in the 9th, which is possible, I haven't looked at the numbers, but it's possible, you are now eliminating cases before they even get to the Supreme Court. So you have to set that up as well. You need to tier this up. It's not just
Well, no,
the
that's
Supreme
true.
Court.
That's
you
true.
need to worry about
You're
federal
right.
courts, because now
we need more summary judgments before it even gets up there,
right,
for
and
God's sake.
and you have federal courts where judges stay honestly a lot longer than Supreme Court. Right, Supreme Court has a lot of pressure. I think a lot of people burn out in a few years, and it can happen. You have a lot of these judges on a federal level, locally, in all the different circuits, who stay on the bench for 35, 40 years. You replace a couple of those, and you're also saving the Supreme Court from any presidential damage in the next 8 years. Say he loses the next election, and you get an uber liberal in there. You now have things being taken care of before they get to that Supreme Court.
I think he's going to have 3 in 4 years.
I think he'll have
he's
3
going to
as
have
well.
3. And if you can pull that off, and that's where you set up the fight.
Yes.
Yeah, they're going to fight against his executive orders. They're going to bleed all over that. They're going to push back on everything that he wants to do. I'm telling you, the pitchforks, the torches, they are coming out starting next week. That's when it gets deadly serious, because they know what the bottom line is on that. The bottom line is loss of power.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. Like you said, summary judgments are going to be huge leading into that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Supreme Court's ideal right now for the picking.
There's no doubt. And here's the thing: Democrats are going to fight tooth and nail every single way. And I'll be curious
No matter
to see,
who it is.
No matter who it is. No
So
matter
that's
who it is.
why I think you-
And
That's
what's
exactly
funny
it.
is Schumer said, we need somebody. We need a mainstream judge. Guess what? The 3 judges he's putting forward are all federal appellate judges, and they've all already been through a confirmation hearing. How are you going to now say they're not fit?
Well, Chuck Schumer said to the Face of America that they'll have to be more moderate, and then we can approve them. Well, wrong. They're gonna obstruct every last damned one.
Well, and here's the other thing, too, is you might as well go now with your most conservative choice. It's going to be a fight no matter what. But if you're Trump and you get your first judge who is extremely conservative,
The door's
confirmed,
open.
The door is now open. And they will fight less if you have somebody who's a little bit more moderate. And that fight will be less later on. You're letting them punch themselves tired out of the gate.
Yep.
I think that's the way to go with that. I think you pick somebody who is extremely conservative. They're going to get it anyhow. The Democrats can kick and scream all they want. They can't do it for 4 years. A couple different names thrown around, but the second best newsman in the business, Dan Butcher, who's in the chat room.
That's the name you're throwing around?
Is he's talking about William Pryor.
Oh, I thought he was talking about
on the
Dan
Alabama
Butcher.
on the 11th Circuit. And Hardiman out of Pennsylvania on the Third Circuit. There's
a great judge in the. Believe it or not, there is a California appellate judge that I would love to see on the United States Supreme Court.
Okay, who?
That is Judge O'Rourke.
Wow.
Southern California.
Never heard
California appellate judge, a Wilson appointee.
Oh boy, that dates.
A brilliant. Yeah, he's older, so I don't know that he's somebody that.
I was
going to
say how many years are left in him.
But he's got a brilliant legal mind. If you read some of his dissents, notice I say dissents.
Yeah, right.
That's the critical word right there. You read some of his dissents. And the guy.
That's all he has.
Look him up. Look at Judge O'Rourke, California appellate court judge.
Just read his dissents. That's all he has.
He's cantankerous, which is amazing, like somebody else I know. And he's a natural law. He's the one. He's actually yeah.
Was he on the 3 Circuit panel on the last 2A vote?
No, that's 9th Circuit.
Oh,
that's a federal. He's state appellate.
Oh, I'm sorry, state appellate.
He's a state appellate.
Okay, I thought you were talking federal.
Yeah, no, he wasn't. He wasn't a Woodrow Wilson appointee.
That's what I was wondering.
He was a Governor Wilson.
Yeah.
I was like,
you were in Boston at the time, so you wouldn't know Governor Wilson.
Governor Flip Wilson.
Governor Wilson was the last
him.
Republican.
That was the guy.
He was the last real Republican governor we had.
Yeah.
Then we had Gray Davis.
He's
then
the former mayor of San Diego.
Then we had Schwarzenegger, who wasn't really a Republican, and now we have Brown. Pete Wilson.
Oh, man. By the way, anything else on the inauguration, gentlemen, before we kind of close the door on that?
Trump nailed it.
I thought it was a great speech, and his first week has been solid. Let's talk Mr. Spicer.
You know, I would. Can I have a second? Can I brag for a minute?
Why not?
Why wouldn't you not do it now?
SHR is probably going to be sponsoring a baseball team, and that's all I'm going to say.
All right, we'll start there. I want to brag a second moment.
Okay, go ahead.
The term that's being used, and you pointed this out quite astutely, all over the place now is criminal alien instead of illegal immigration. It is being seen by the administration, it's being said.
Yep.
It's being said by media outlets now. I would like to point out that prior to 4 years ago, the first time we coined that term here on the Sackheads radio show, I had not heard it once.
Never.
And certainly not out of this administration. And it's popped up more and more over the last year or so during this run for the White House, and now it is being used on a daily basis. I have to admit, I think it was ours.
Look,
I'm taking full credit for it.
We have to. Look,
I'm going to actually make a shirt that says "Home of the Criminal Alien."
We should, and not only that, we should find.
I like that.
We should find that show because that show was a good 4 years ago.
It was 4 years ago.
We were in a different studio, and we were talking about it, and I remember specifically, so you know what? That's a new term.
Is it actually findable? Is it archived somewhere?
It is
It's
one of our
archived somewhere.
archives, yeah. And I got to go back and find it.
And we said, listen, from now on, we're going to say it's criminal alien, and you watch, this term's going to take off.
Yep.
I hadn't heard it anywhere. We searched it.
We said it all the time on our show.
We said it all the
Wouldn't
time
it
on
be
the
fun
show.
to listen to some of your old shows?
It's scary. I've gone back occasionally.
It's scary.
If you search a podcast website called Libsyn, Libsyn, and if you search for the Sackheads radio show on it, all of our archives should still be there. So let's move on to Spicer. Oh my, how the media press pool, as you pointed out, at the White House is just up in arms over Mr. Spicer. One of the first things that I like about him and I noticed about him is he doesn't let them double talk and he does not kowtow to anybody that is in that pool. He has been very direct. He corrects them when they misspeak. He's been very informative, but doesn't allow them to dictate. And he tells them how it is. Hey, I don't have an answer for that. I'll get back to you. Yeah, but what? I don't have an answer for that. I will get back to you, sir. Not forcing an answer, not giving an answer that he's not made, and not giving a BS line.
Right.
Like, well, we all know that the president's stance on blah, as we saw with Ernest and the other ones over the last 4 years. No, I don't have an answer. I will get back to you with one.
Or the AP, the Associated Press, through a gasket this morning.
God.
When he had the absolute temerity to pick on the New York Post instead of the Associated Press
Yes.
for the first question.
Yes.
They became absolutely unhinged.
How dare?
Good.
How dare he not pick me first? Well, maybe if you were nicer, we would have.
Yeah, maybe if you weren't a bunch of D-bags.
Well, and I'm sure you've heard
So-
of the fact that they're thinking about allowing just citizens to come in and attend press briefings and ask questions.
Yeah, well, we would like to be a part of that.
We
if
would.
it ever happens.
I do want to say one thing. I read a statistic. I have not fully vetted this or not, but I read something. I think it's accurate. I'm just going to throw it out there because it's interesting either way. Trump won the popular vote in 31 states.
Yes.
Clinton won the popular vote in 19 states and D.C.
Which doesn't count.
Outside of California, Trump led the total popular vote for all the states combined, except in California.
Right.
Hillary Clinton won 5,860 votes, 5,860,714 to Trump's 3,151,821 votes. This means California alone gave Hillary Clinton the popular vote for all states, as claimed by the Democrats, right? Which essentially means Hillary was elected president of California, and Trump was elected president of everywhere
Of the
else.
rest of the nation.
This is why the Electoral College is brilliant, because California would have chosen the president for the rest of the country.
Well, and here's what the Democrats want. They want their power in perpetuity.
Yes.
And they do not want anyone to interfere with that
agree.
ability.
I agree.
That's the goal.
And as we've seen over this last, 2 weeks specifically, but this almost, 5 days since President Trump was inaugurated, you have seen a left come completely unglued. And the best part is
Bring
they're
it on,
stupid
leftists.
enough to do
You
it on
bet.
television. So the people who are trying to pick a side are looking at them and go, completely insane, or just think a little different than I do.
But see, here's the
completely
thing.
insane.
I know you got to go pretty soon, but
Think a little
here's
bit
one of the false memes of this. A recent poll came out saying that the vast majority of residents living in California would like to see sanctuary cities banned.
Yes.
That's not covered.
Yes. And I think 19 counties have some sort of sanctuary approach to their policing and whatnot. I'll tell you what, I think you're going to start seeing a lot of it go away. I've said this before, and I've said it again with law enforcement. When you have a president who will actually mention law enforcement at his inauguration, I think you're going to see some chiefs and sheriff who have been otherwise afraid because of the political backlash and just what what would come down if they take a very conservative approach to law enforcement, start coming out of the woodwork more, even if it's to save their own hides. And that's direct to immigration. You're going to see some just start working with federal officials on immigration alone. Folks, that's it here for the SAC.
Great show.
Thank
Great
you,
show,
folks, for
Sean.
listening.
Great show, Clint.
Outstanding job, gentlemen. I appreciate your time, as always. To everyone in the chat room at shrmedia.com, thank you so much. We get underway in just a few short hours here on the SHR Media Network. If you're on the East Coast, or even if you're on the West Coast, it's still a few short hours. Make sure you check it out. Full lineup again tomorrow, right up through Ken's show, The Exceptional Conservative.
The Reva Reeves tomorrow morning.
Everybody, The Right Way goes tomorrow. You got to listen to Melanie's show. If you want to know about finances, she's definitely the one to listen to. Of course, Jersey Joe will be cackling. Hopefully he's feeling better. I know he was a little bit under the weather today. Right through the afternoon, we have some great shows. So stick around here at the SHR Media Network. And we will be back next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast. Right here from Studio One, the big studio. The biggest. The ballsiest. Sorry.
And that's BALLZ.
Z.
E-S.
E-E-S-T.
See how I did that? BZ, all in the same thing with balls?
We'll see you next week.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Backheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
The best late night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.